The morning sun spilled through the window of Mei Lin's small apartment in Chiang Mai, illuminating dust particles that danced in the golden light. Her phone buzzed for the third time that morning. Mei groaned and rolled over, her hand fumbling, across the bedside table until her fingers closed around the device. "Hello?" she mumbled, her voice still thick with sleep. "Mei, thank goodness you picked up. I've been calling you forever." The familiar voice of her college friend Priya burst through the speaker with characteristic enthusiasm. Mei sat up and rubbed her eyes. "Priya, it's barely 7 a.m. here. What's so important?" "I need a huge favor," Priya said, the hint of pleading already evident in her voice. "My boss's friend is visiting Thailand next week. He needs someone to show him around, not those touristy places, but the real Thailand. You know, the places only locals know about." Mei sighed, already knowing where this conversation was heading. At 28, she had built a reputation as one of the best local guides in Chiang Mai. Her small tour company specialized in authentic cultural experiences, taking travelers off the beaten path to experience the heart and soul of Thailand. "Priya, I'm booked solid next week. The high season just started and, please, Mei, this is really important. My promotion might depend on it. Just 3 days, that's all I'm asking. He's a businessman from America, very nice and respectful, I promise." Mei got out of bed and walked to her tiny kitchen, phone pressed between her ear and shoulder as she made coffee. Her calendar hanging on the refrigerator door was indeed filled with colorful markers indicating tours, but there was a small gap in the middle of the week. "What's this guy's name anyway, and why can't he just book a regular tour?" Mei asked, curiosity getting the better of her. "His name is James Wilson. Well, let's just say he's important to my company, and he specifically asked for someone who could show him the non-touristy side of Thailand, someone trustworthy." The coffee machine gurgled to life, filling the apartment with the rich aroma that Mei needed to fully wake up. She leaned against the counter, weighing her options. She could rearrange a few things, perhaps ask Nock to cover her morning temple tour on Wednesday. "Fine," Mei finally said. "But you owe me big time, Priya. And if this American is one of those entitled tourists who complains about the heat and wants air conditioning everywhere, I'm sending him straight back to you." Priya's squeal of delight made Mei pull the phone away from her ear. "You're the absolute best. I'll text you his contact information right away. He's staying at the Riverview Hotel." After hanging up, Mei sipped her coffee and stared out the window at the bustling street below. The Riverview was a modest hotel, nothing fancy. At least this James person wasn't demanding luxury accommodations. Perhaps it wouldn't be so bad after all. The days passed quickly, and before Mei knew it, she was walking through the lobby of the Riverview Hotel, scanning the faces of the guests for someone who looked like an American businessman. She had expected someone in a suit, perhaps checking emails on an expensive phone, with that slightly impatient air business people often carried with them even on vacation. What she hadn't expected was the man sitting quietly in the corner, dressed in worn jeans and a simple blue t-shirt, reading a dog-eared guidebook with complete absorption. His brown hair was slightly messy, as if he'd run his hands through it several times, and his face had the weathered look of someone who spent time outdoors. Mei approached hesitantly. "Excuse me, are you James Wilson?" The man looked up, and Mei was struck by the warmth in his hazel eyes. He smiled, not the polite practice smile of a businessman, but a genuine one that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "You must be Mei Lin," he said, standing up and extending his hand. His grip was firm, but not overpowering. "It's good to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to show me around on such short notice." Mei nodded, still trying to reconcile this casual, unassuming figure with the important businessman Priya had described. "Do you have anything specific you'd like to see during your time here?" she asked, falling back on her professional routine. James tucked the guidebook into a small, well-worn backpack, another surprise. Most of her clients arrived with enormous suitcases filled with gear they'd never use. "I'd like to see the real Thailand," he said simply. "Not the places designed for tourists, but where you would go with your friends or family. I want to eat what locals eat, see what they see." He paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "Is that too much to ask?" May felt a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. Not at all. It's actually refreshing. Most visitors want to check famous landmarks off their lists and take selfies for social media. That's not why I travel, James said, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. There was something in his tone, a quiet sincerity that made May believe him. Well then, she said, feeling her initial reluctance fading. Let's start with breakfast at my favorite place. It's a tiny stall near the morning market. The grandmother who runs it makes the best rice porridge in the city, but tourists never find it. To her surprise, James's face lit up with genuine excitement. Lead the way, he said. As they left the hotel and stepped into the humid morning air of Chiang Mai, May couldn't help but wonder about this unusual American. Priya had said he was important, but nothing about him screamed wealth or status. His backpack looked like it had traveled the world several times over, and his walking shoes were practical and well used. Weaving through the narrow soy alleyways, May pointed out little details that most tourists missed. The spirit houses with fresh offerings, the old Chinese shophouse architecture hidden behind modern signs, the local children playing traditional games in a small courtyard. James asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to her answers. He didn't constantly check his phone or interrupt her explanations. When they reached the tiny food stall, with its wobbly plastic chairs and faded awning, he didn't hesitate or look disappointed. Instead, he greeted the elderly woman cooking with a respectful Y gesture that May had quickly taught him. The old woman, Kun Chai, raised her eyebrows at May in silent question. May knew what she was asking. Why are you bringing a foreigner to my humble stall? He wants to eat real Thai food, Kun Chai, May explained in Thai, not the watered-down tourist version. The old woman's face broke into a toothless grin. She nodded approvingly and began preparing 2 bowls of her famous jok rice porridge, adding extra toppings of minced pork, century egg, and crispy garlic. When the steaming bowls arrived at their table, James didn't flinch at the unfamiliar ingredients. He watched how May seasoned hers with fish sauce, chili, and lime, then followed her example, taking his first spoonful with an open mind. His eyes widened in appreciation. This is incredible, he said after swallowing. You can taste the care in every spoonful. Kun Chai, who understood enough English to catch the compliment, beamed with pride. May found herself smiling too. Maybe this unexpected tour guide duty wouldn't be so bad after all. Little did she know that this unassuming American with his worn backpack and genuine smile would change her life forever. The next morning, May arrived at the hotel earlier than planned. Something about this unusual American tourist had sparked her curiosity. As she waited in the lobby, she noticed several other tour guides with their groups, guides wearing matching shirts holding up colorful flags, hurrying their charges along with practiced efficiency. Their tourists looked dazed, cameras dangling from their necks following obediently as they checked famous temples off their lists. That wasn't the kind of experience she wanted to give James. For reasons she couldn't quite explain, she wanted to show him the Thailand she loved, not just the Thailand visitors expected to see. When James appeared, his face brightened at the sight of her. Good morning, he called, weaving through the busy lobby. Today, he wore a simple linen shirt. Practical, for the heat but still somehow rumpled as if he'd packed it in his small backpack without much concern for wrinkles. I thought we'd go to the mountains today, May said as they stepped outside. There's a village about an hour's drive from here. Not many tourists go there. Sounds perfect, James replied. What's special about this place? May hailed a Songdayu, the red pickup trucks that served as shared taxis around the city. James looked delighted when she explained they would be riding in the back with locals rather than taking a private car. They make the best hand-woven textiles in the region, May explained as they climbed aboard. And their coffee is amazing. They grow it right there on the mountainside. The Songthu filled with local passengers, a woman with a basket of vegetables, an older man with his grandson, 2 young students in uniform. James smiled and nodded at everyone, then turned back to May. How did you become a tour guide? He asked as the truck rumbled through the city streets toward the mountain roads. May hadn't expected such a personal question. Most tourists only Asked about the temples or where to find the best pad thai. I studied tourism at university, she said, but not to become a regular guide. I wanted to create experiences that would help people understand Thai culture beyond the surface, to build bridges between visitors and locals. James nodded thoughtfully. That's rare. Most of the tourism industry is focused on moving as many people through as quickly as possible. Exactly. May's voice rose with unexpected passion. That's what I hate. People come to Thailand and leave thinking they've seen it, but they've only scratched the surface. They don't meet real Thai people or understand our way of life. The Songthaew hit a pothole, jolting everyone. James grabbed the railing to steady himself, laughing along with the other passengers. Sorry, May said, suddenly embarrassed by her outburst. I get carried away sometimes. Don't apologize, James said. It's refreshing to hear someone care so deeply about their work. The truck climbed higher into the mountains, the air growing cooler and clearer. Lush jungle surrounded them, occasionally opening to reveal breathtaking views of valleys and distant peaks. May pointed out different plants and trees, explaining their uses in traditional medicine. When they arrived at the village, it was nothing like the tourist attractions in Chiang Mai. No souvenir stands, no postcard racks, no toots trying to sell elephant pants. Just a real working village nestled among tea and coffee plantations. May led James down a narrow path between simple wooden houses built on stilts. Chickens scratched in the dirt, and children played with homemade toys. An elderly woman sat on her porch, fingers flying as she worked a traditional loom. Sawadee ka, Kun Prani, May called out. The woman looked up, her weathered face breaking into a wide smile when she recognized May. She waved them over, speaking rapidly in Thai. She's inviting us to sit, May translated for James. She wants to know if you'd like to try weaving. To May's surprise, James nodded eagerly. He settled on the small stool beside Kun Prani, who began demonstrating how to pass the shuttle through the threads. James watched with complete concentration, his forehead furrowed as he tried to follow her movements. When he attempted it himself, his first tries were clumsy. But instead of giving up, he kept trying, listening carefully to Kun Prani's instructions as May translated. After several attempts, he managed a passable row, earning an approving nod from the old weaver. Tell her this is incredible work, James said to May. Ask her how long she's been doing this. As May translated the question and answer, she noticed something unusual about James. Unlike most tourists who treated such encounters as photo opportunities before rushing to the next attraction, he seemed genuinely interested in Kun Prani's life and craft. After the weaving lesson, they continued through the village. James insisted on trying everything, grinding coffee beans the traditional way, helping a farmer sort through freshly harvested tea leaves, tasting strange fruits offered by smiling villagers. At midday, they stopped at a small open-air restaurant overlooking the valley. The menu was written only in Thai, with no pictures or English translations. Do you trust me to order? May asked, expecting James to ask for something safe and familiar. Completely, he replied without hesitation. She ordered several local specialties: spicy bamboo shoot soup, jungle curry with wild herbs, mountain rice steamed in banana leaves. When the food arrived, James tried everything, even the dishes most foreigners found too spicy or strange. This is incredible, he said between bites of a fermented tea leaf salad that made most tourists wrinkle their noses. You can taste the connection to the land in every bite. May found herself watching him with growing curiosity. You're not like other Americans I've guided, she said finally. James looked up, a question in his eyes. Most of them want comfort. Familiar foods, air conditioning. They see Thailand as a backdrop for their vacation photos. She hesitated, then added, You seem to actually want to understand the place. He set down his spoon, his expression suddenly serious. When I was younger, I traveled to Peru. I took all the usual tours, saw all the famous sights. But when I got home, I realized I hadn't really experienced the country at all. I'd just skimmed the surface. He looked out at the valley stretched before them. I promised myself I wouldn't travel that way again. There was something in his voice, a depth of feeling, perhaps a hint of regret, that made May wonder what kind of businessman James really was. People who wore expensive suits and stayed in luxury hotels rarely spoke this way about connecting with local cultures. As they finished their meal, the restaurant owner came to their table. She spoke to May in rapid Thai, gesturing toward James. "What's she saying?" James asked. May smiled. "She says you eat like a Thai person, not like a tourist. She wants to know if you'd like to learn how to cook these dishes." James's face lit up. "Can we? Is there time?" May checked her watch. They were supposed to return to Chiang Mai by mid-afternoon for a visit to a famous temple. It was on her planned itinerary, the kind of place all tourists expected to see. But looking at James's eager expression, she made a decision. "We have time," she said. "Some things are more important than following a schedule." The genuine smile that spread across James's face told her she'd made the right choice. As they followed the restaurant owner to her small kitchen, May realized that for the first time in years she wasn't just going through the motions of being a tour guide. She was rediscovering her country through the eyes of someone who truly wanted to see it, and she was beginning to suspect that there was much more to James Wilson than met the eye. 3 days into their time together, May found herself actually looking forward to meeting James each morning. Today, they were heading to a small elephant sanctuary hidden deep in the countryside. Unlike the popular tourist attractions where elephants performed tricks or gave rides, this place focused on caring for rescued elephants and letting them live as naturally as possible. "It's one of my favorite places," May explained as their rented motorbike wound through lush green rice fields. James sat behind her, arms loosely around her waist for balance. She'd been surprised when he'd happily agreed to travel by motorbike rather than taxi. "But they're struggling to stay open." "What's the problem?" James asked, his voice close to her ear to be heard over the wind and the engine. "Money, of course." May slowed as they approached a narrow bridge. "The owner, Kun Samchai, refuses to make the elephants perform or give rides. That means fewer tourists come. And caring for elephants is expensive. The food alone costs thousands of baht each week." James was quiet for a moment. "It's a tough situation. Do what's right for the animals, or do what brings in money?" "Exactly," May said, surprised by his understanding. Most tourists just wanted to take elephant selfies without thinking about the animals' welfare. After another 20 minutes on increasingly bumpy dirt roads, they arrived at a simple wooden gate with a hand-painted sign, "Happy Elephant Sanctuary." The place looked nothing like the glossy tourist attractions advertised in town. No gift shop, no fancy visitor center, just a few modest buildings and a vast area of forested land beyond. An older man in a worn shirt and mud-splattered boots greeted them with a friendly wave. His weathered face broke into a smile when he saw May. "Kun May, it's been too long," he called out in Thai. "Who is your friend?" "This is James," May replied in Thai. "He's visiting from America and wanted to see a place where elephants are treated with respect." The old man, Kun Somchai, nodded approvingly and extended his hand to James. "Welcome," he said in accented English. "Any friend of May is welcome here." James shook his hand warmly. "Thank you for having us. I've been looking forward to this visit." Kun Somchai led them along a dirt path toward the sound of running water. "The elephants are bathing in the river now," he explained. "They choose when to bathe, when to eat, when to rest. Here we follow their schedule, not the other way around." As they rounded a bend, the trees opened to reveal a small river where 3 elephants stood in the shallows, spraying water over their backs with their trunks. Unlike the elephants May had seen at tourist camps, these animals moved freely, without chains or hooks. Their eyes looked alert and curious rather than dull and defeated. "They're magnificent," James whispered, his face filled with wonder. Kun Somchai beamed with pride. These 3 were rescued from a trekking camp 2 years ago. When they arrived, they were underweight and had sores from carrying too many tourists. Now look at them, healthy and beginning to remember how to be elephants again. For the next 2 hours, They simply observed the elephants from a respectful distance. Kun Somchai explained each animal's story and personality. James listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about elephant behavior and conservation. Not once did he ask to touch them or take photos up close, something that impressed both May and Kun Somchai. When they broke for lunch, sitting at a simple wooden table with food prepared by Kun Somchai's wife, the conversation turned to the sanctuary's challenges. "How much longer can you keep this place running?" James asked, his tone casual but his eyes focused intently on Kun Somchai. The old man sighed, setting down his spoon. 6 months, maybe less. The landowner wants to sell to developers. They plan to build a resort. His voice grew bitter. "With elephant rides and shows, of course, everything we've fought against." "How much would it cost to buy the land outright?" James asked. May translated the figure Kun Somchai named, an impossible sum for a small sanctuary. She expected James to shake his head sympathetically and change the subject, as most people would. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully and continued eating. After lunch, Kun Somchai took them to see the elephant food preparation area, as he demonstrated how they mixed special nutrients into the elephant's food. A young man approached, speaking rapidly to him in Thai. Kun Somchai's eyes widened as he looked at James with sudden recognition. He quickly excused himself and hurried, off with the young man glancing back over his shoulder with an expression of shock. "What was that about?" James asked May. "I'm not sure," she replied, puzzled by the strange interaction. "The young man is Kun Somchai's nephew who works in the city. Maybe there's some family emergency?" They continued their tour, walking along the sanctuary's boundaries where Kun Somchai had pointed out plans for future elephant habitats, dreams that would now likely never come true. 15 minutes later, Kun Somchai returned, looking flustered. He kept glancing at James with a mixture of confusion and awe. "Is everything okay?" May asked in Thai. The old man pulled her aside, speaking quietly. "Do you know who your American friend really is?" he asked. May frowned. "What do you mean?" "He's a businessman visiting Thailand." Kun Somchai shook his head. "My nephew recognized him. He works at a hotel where there was a big international business conference last month. Your friend is James Wilson, the founder of Global Connect Technologies. He's one of the richest men in America." May stared at him in disbelief, then turned to look at James, who was crouched down examining elephant footprints in the mud, completely unaware of their conversation. James Wilson, the tech billionaire, the man whose face had been on the cover of business magazines, the same man wearing scuffed boots and a simple shirt carrying a worn backpack. "There must be some mistake," she said weakly. "No mistake," Kun Somchai insisted. "My nephew served him at the conference. He remembers because Mr. Wilson was so different from the other rich businessmen, kind to the staff, leaving big tips, talking to everyone the same way whether they were cleaning floors or running companies." May's mind raced, replaying every conversation, every moment of the past 3 days. The thoughtful questions about sustainable tourism, his interest in local economies, the way he noticed details most tourists missed. Suddenly, it all took on new meaning. "Please don't tell him I know," she said quickly to Kun Somchai. "Not yet." The old man nodded in understanding. As they rejoined James, May saw him with new eyes. Now she noticed the quiet confidence behind his unassuming manner, the way he observed everything with intelligent assessment, the ease with which he spoke about global issues. How had she missed it? "Everything okay?" James asked, looking concerned at her sudden silence. "Fine," May managed to say. "Just thinking about the elephants." "They're amazing creatures," he agreed, looking back at the gentle giants. "It would be a tragedy to lose this place." As they prepared to leave, James thanked Kun Somchai warmly. "This has been the highlight of my trip," he said. "You're doing important work here." The old man bowed slightly. "Thank you for visiting us. Not many see the value in what we do." "I see it," James said simply. On the ride back to Chiang Mai, May's mind whirled with questions. Why had a billionaire tech CEO chosen to travel like a backpacker? Why hadn't he mentioned who he really was? And most importantly, what would happen now that she knew the truth? Little did she know that James Wilson had plans that would change not just the elephant sanctuary's future, but her own as well. The morning after discovering James's true identity, May couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in her small apartment, her mind racing with questions. Should she mention that she knew? Would it change their dynamic if she did? And why would someone, with his wealth and power, choose to travel like an ordinary tourist? By the time she arrived at his hotel, she had decided to keep the knowledge to herself. After all, there must be a reason he hadn't shared it. James was waiting in the lobby, reading something on his phone with deep concentration. When he saw her, he quickly put it away and smiled. "Good morning," he said, standing up. "Everything okay? You look tired." May forced a smile. "Just didn't sleep well. Nothing to worry about." She hesitated, then asked, "What would you like to do today? It's our last full day together." Something flickered across James's face. Disappointment, perhaps? "I was hoping we could talk about something important over breakfast. There's a cafe nearby that you mentioned had good coffee?" May nodded, curiosity growing. They walked in comfortable silence to the local cafe, a tiny place tucked away down a side street where tourists rarely ventured. The owner greeted May by name and led them to a quiet table in the corner. After they ordered, James seemed unusually nervous, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. Finally, he took a deep breath. "May, there's something I need to tell you. I haven't been completely honest about who I am or why I'm in Thailand." May's heart skipped. So he was going to reveal his identity. "I'm not just a businessman," he continued. "I'm the founder and CEO of Global Connect Technologies." She tried to look surprised, widening her eyes. "The tech company? The one worth billions?" James nodded, watching her reaction carefully. "I'm sorry I wasn't upfront about it. When people know who I am, they treat me differently. They show me what they think I want to see, not what's real. I wanted to experience the authentic Thailand, not some sanitized version created for rich tourists." May considered her response carefully. "I understand wanting to be treated like a normal person," she said finally. "But why tell me now?" The server brought their coffee and a plate of steaming rice flour dumplings. James waited until they were alone again before continuing. "Because I want to talk to you about business, and I needed you to know who you're really dealing with." He stirred his coffee, gathering his thoughts. "The real reason I came to Thailand wasn't just for vacation. I'm launching a new project, a global initiative focused on sustainable tourism." May leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "What kind of initiative?" "One that addresses the exact problems you've been pointing out to me all week." His eyes lit up with passion. "Tourism that benefits local communities instead of exploiting them. Experiences that protect cultural heritage and natural environments instead of destroying them." "That sounds ambitious," May said, trying to keep her voice neutral even as her heart raced. "It is." James smiled. "But I've spent the last year researching the concept, talking to experts, studying successful models. What I haven't found yet is the right person to lead the Thailand branch." May nearly choked on her coffee. "And you think that person is me?" "I know it is." His voice held absolute certainty. "May, the way you approach tourism is exactly what this initiative needs. You understand that true cultural exchange isn't about taking photos of temples or buying fake souvenirs. It's about creating connections between people." May's mind whirled. Was this really happening? "But I run a tiny tour company. I have no experience managing something big." "Your company might be small, but your vision isn't." James leaned forward. "You've shown me that in every choice you've made this week, taking me to meet local artisans rather than tourist traps, introducing me to people like Kun Somchai who are doing important work with limited resources." May's cheeks warmed at his praise. "What exactly would this position involve?" James's eyes sparked with enthusiasm. "You'd have resources to implement many of the ideas you've mentioned throughout our tours. Remember when you talked about creating a network of authentic homestays in villages? Or developing training programs for local guides focusing on cultural preservation? Or helping artisans reach international markets without middlemen taking all the profits? May stared at him. She had mentioned those ideas casually, not expecting anyone to take them seriously. The foundation would provide funding, technology support, and global connections, James continued. But the vision, the heart of it, would come from people like you who understand their own communities and cultures. And what about places like Kunsum Chai's elephant sanctuary? May asked, thinking of the old man's struggle. That's exactly the kind of project we want to support, James said. Ethical wildlife tourism that prioritizes animal welfare over profit. Places that educate visitors rather than exploiting animals for entertainment. The possibilities began to flood May's mind. With proper funding, how many local communities could benefit? How many cultural traditions could be preserved? How many families could earn sustainable incomes without compromising their values? But doubt crept in as well. Why me, though? There must be people with better qualifications, more experience. Experience can be gained. Qualifications can be earned. James's voice was gentle but firm. What can't be taught is the passion you have for your country and your commitment to sharing it in a way that benefits everyone. I've met with tourism experts around the world, May. What you have is rare. May looked down at her coffee, overwhelmed. This is a lot to take in. I understand, James said. I don't expect an answer today. This would be a major life change for you. What would happen to my current business? My clients? You could integrate it into the foundation's work if you wanted, or keep it separate. The structure would be up to you. He pulled out a business card, simple white cardstock with just his name and contact information. Take some time to think about it. Call me when you're ready to talk more. As May took the card, their fingers brushed briefly. She felt the weight of the opportunity in that small rectangle of paper. There's one more thing, James said, his voice softer now. Tomorrow morning, before my flight, I'm meeting with Kun Somchai. The foundation is going to purchase the land for the sanctuary and provide funding for expansion. But I'd like you to be there, if you're comfortable with it. May's eyes widened. You're saving the sanctuary? It's a worthy project, James said simply. Whether you decide to join the foundation or not, that decision is already made. For a moment, May couldn't speak. She thought of the elephants, of Kun Somchai's weathered face lit with hope. This was no empty promise or casual charity. This was a life-changing commitment for the sanctuary. I'll be there, she finally managed to say. As they finished breakfast and planned their final day of exploration, May felt as though she stood at a crossroads. Behind her lay the comfortable, familiar path she had always known. Ahead stretched a new road filled with possibilities she had never dared to imagine. By the time they parted that evening, the weight of James's proposal hung between them, unspoken but impossible to ignore. May walked home slowly through the twilight streets of Chiang Mai, the business card burning a hole in her pocket. A decision awaited her, a decision that would change everything. For 3 weeks after James left Thailand, May couldn't make up her mind. His business card sat on her small kitchen table, where she would stare at it while drinking her morning coffee. The opportunity he offered seemed too good to be true, a chance to create the kind of tourism she had always dreamed about, with resources she could never have imagined. But fear held her back. What if she failed? What if she wasn't qualified enough? What if she left her comfortable life only to discover she couldn't handle the pressure? The day after James departed, she had gone with him to meet Kun Somchai. She would never forget the old man's face when James explained that his foundation was purchasing the land outright and providing a 10-year funding commitment for the sanctuary. Why would you do this for us? Kun Somchai had asked, tears welling in his eyes. Because what you're doing matters, James had replied simply, and the world needs more people who do what matters, not just what's profitable. May had felt something shift inside her during that moment. The look on Kun Somchai's face, Pure relief mixed with renewed purpose stayed with her long after James's plane had departed. Her friend Priya called almost daily, astonished by what had happened. "I had no idea he was that James Wilson," Priya exclaimed during one call. "My boss nearly fainted when I told him you'd been showing him around on a motorbike and taking him to eat at street stalls." "He seemed happy with it," May said defensively. "He wanted to see the real Thailand. And now he wants you to run his foundation here. May, you have to say yes. This is the chance of a lifetime." "It's not that simple," May replied. "My whole life would change." "Isn't that the point?" Priya countered. Those words echoed in May's mind as she continued her regular tours, showing groups of tourists the same temples, the same markets, the same attractions. Something had changed. The work that had once satisfied her now felt hollow, like she was only scratching the surface of what was possible. Late one evening, nearly a month after James's departure, May found herself at the night market, guiding a group of Australian tourists. As they wandered among the stalls selling mass-produced souvenirs, she overheard a conversation that stopped her in her tracks. "These aren't real Thai crafts," a vendor was explaining to his young nephew in Thai. "They're made in factories. But tourists don't know the difference and they're cheap." "But uncle, you used to make beautiful carvings yourself," the boy said. "Why don't you sell those instead?" The older man sighed. "No one wants to pay what they're worth, child, and I can't compete with these prices. This way, at least we eat." May stood frozen, watching as the man arranged factory-made handcrafts on his table. How many artisans had given up their traditional skills because they couldn't earn a living wage? How many cultural treasures were being lost because the tourism industry valued cheapness over authenticity? That night, she couldn't sleep. At 3 in the morning, she got up, made a cup of tea, and finally picked up James's business card. Before she could change her mind, she sent him an email. "I've been thinking about your offer," she wrote. "I have questions. Many questions, but I'm ready to talk." His reply came within hours, despite the time difference. They arranged a video call for the following day. May spent the morning pacing her apartment, writing down all her concerns and questions. When James's face appeared on her screen, she was surprised by the wave of warmth she felt at seeing him again. "It's good to see you, May," he said, his smile genuine. He looked different in a crisp button-down shirt, sitting in what appeared to be a sleek office, but his eyes were the same, kind and attentive. "You too," she replied. "I've been thinking about your offer." "And? I still have concerns," she said honestly. "I don't have a business degree. I've never managed anything bigger than my small tour company." "We can provide training," James said, "and a team to handle the financial aspects. What I need is your vision, May, your understanding of what tourism should be." She took a deep breath. "If I accept, I need freedom to build this my way, not just following some corporate model from America." "That's exactly what I want," James assured her. "This has to be built from the ground up in each country, respecting local cultures and needs. The Thailand branch should be Thai in its approach, not American." For nearly 2 hours, they talked through details. Every concern May raised, James addressed thoughtfully. He wasn't offering her a job, she realized. He was offering her a partnership. By the end of the call, her decision was made. "I'll do it," she said finally. "I want to build something that makes a difference." The smile that spread across James's face told her he had been hoping for this answer all along. "Welcome aboard, May," he said. "Let's change how the world travels." 1 year later, May stood at the entrance of the new community tourism center in her hometown of Chiang Mai. The repurposed old building had been carefully restored, preserving its traditional Thai architecture while creating a welcoming space inside. Local artisans displayed their crafts in the marketplace area, where visitors could watch them work and learn about traditional techniques. A training center offered classes for local guides, focusing on cultural preservation and sustainable practices. A cafe served local food, with profits supporting community projects. Today was the official opening, and despite her nervous excitement, May couldn't help but feel proud. This was just the first of 5 centers planned across Thailand, each adapted to its local community's needs and traditions. As she checked the final preparations, she spotted a familiar figure entering through the main door. James, dressed in his characteristic simple style despite his wealth, looked around with obvious appreciation. "This is incredible, May," he said as he approached. "Better than I imagined." "We've only just begun," she replied, gesturing to the maps on the wall showing future projects. "Next month we start the artisan support program in the northern villages." James nodded, taking it all in. "How does it feel, being on this side of tourism now?" May considered the question. The past year had been challenging, learning new skills, building a team, weathering setbacks. There had been moments when doubt had nearly overwhelmed her, but there had also been triumphs. The look on an elderly weaver's face when her textiles sold for their true value, the pride of young guides learning about their own cultural heritage, Kun Somchai's elephants thriving in their expanded sanctuary. "It feels right," she said simply. As guests began to arrive for the opening ceremony, May watched James chat with local community members. He still wore no designer clothes, flashed no expensive watch, demanded no special treatment. He had all the trappings of wealth at his disposal, yet chose simplicity. She understood now why he had traveled as he did. True wealth wasn't about luxury hotels or exclusive experiences. It was about connections, to people, to places, to purpose. And sometimes the greatest opportunities came, disguised as simple favors for friends.